Hello, ACDA. This is Peter Duro, and I'm sitting down with Roland Carter. Very excited for him to share with us. About 50 years ago, he penned his arrangement of "Lift Every Voice and Sing," and I'm just so thrilled that he's spending some time with us to tell us about the arrangement and how it came to be 50 years ago. So, without further ado, Roland Carter, please tell us.
Thank you, Peter. My pleasure to discuss this arrangement that I did, as you said, 50 years ago. I grew up in Chattanooga, Tennessee, in a very segregated, at a very Jim Crow segregated time, okay? So I went to elementary school in 1948, believe it or not, and in the first grade, and actually, we began singing that song we would sing it every morning in elementary school. We would do a patriotic song like "My Country 'Tis of Thee," or we would do the Star Spangled Banner, but we would follow it with "Lift Every Voice and Sing." And this would happen every morning. You stand with your hand over your heart and you do the pledge allegiance to the flag, and then the pledge allegiance to the Christian flag. I mean, we just did all of those things. It was really interesting how we grew up doing these things. So the song has been a part of me most of my life, for 72 years, okay? So, and then as we grew and moved into the big movement, the civil rights movement of the 60s and the 70s, then the value of the song became even more important. And I was somewhat of an activist. I was president of the local chapter of the youth NAACP, and actually went to workshops, nonviolent workshops, a place called Highlander Folk School. And I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but it was branded as a communist camp for training of civil rights workers. And I was told that I was never to tell anybody I had been to that camp, because during that time, the big communist kind of label you get could impact your life the rest of it. But anyway, that's part of where I've been and where I've come. My high school class, because we did not have a large Black college here in Chattanooga, my high school class in 1960 was responsible for the sit-ins, which started with the 5 and dime stores, Woolworth, Cressers, and all of those counters, where other cities with major Black colleges had demonstrations, from Greensboro to Fisk and all. So that's the background of where I was. But in terms, my high school teacher, after I accepted my first position at Hampton University, and this is important, and I don't want, this probably will go much longer than you ever want it to be, but my high school teacher was a graduate of Hampton University, and she had literally planted me on that campus because she wanted me to go there. Now, this is important, and I don't know if you know the name Robert Nathaniel Dett, but Dett was one of her teachers. So it ironically, I mean, I've ended up having 6 or 7 of Dett's students as my mentors and teachers throughout my life. So that's an important part of my musical lineage. But in 1970, she invited me back to Chattanooga. Chattanooga finally got a second high school for Blacks. We only had one when I went to high school, so, and there was a second one, and they were going to do a concert, and she invited me back to do a concert with them. And I said, wow, it'd be nice to do something special for them. I started the arrangement then. I didn't finish it, unfortunately, at that point. But in terms of programming, the idea was to open a concert. During those days, most colleges, most choirs opened with something patriotic and closed with something patriotic. The Wilhowski Battle Hymn was the closing anthem of a concert in most instances. So I wanted to do something else. And of course, this was during the period of the Vietnamese War and the things that were happening all over the world. And I wanted people to embrace this song because more than about black and white, it's about man's inhumaneness to man. It's a much more broader than just black and white relations to me. But it was dubbed the Black National Anthem, and I'm not sure most people know why it became the dub. It was dubbed that because the author of the poem, James Weldon Johnson, became the first executive director of the NAACP in 1919. And later in 1920, they adopted his song as the national song of the NAACP. So if you are a member, or many people were members of NAACP, so that hymn became well known from the 20s right on. At every meeting about civil rights, every meeting about, any black gathering of all blacks, Lift Every Voice was a song that was sung because we had indeed sung it from elementary school every day, along with the Star Spangled Banner and My Country 'Tis of Thee. Now you got that history. But I really wanted to do something that my goal was to make the song meaningful, not only to blacks or African Americans, but to everyone. Now, during this period also, we had the development of the supplement to American hymnals. Major hymnals started developing. There was one, Lift Every Voice, for the Episcopal Church, which had supplements for music by black spirituals and familiar hymns of that kind. The Catholic developed one called Lead Me, Guide Me. The United Methodists had a supplement called Songs of Zion. And so these things start happening, and they start including Lift Every Voice in each of these. So it became a very familiar thing, not just among blacks, but among congregations across the country. So I set out to do this. And it's ironic how somehow I took the Wilhowski, and it's no secret, as a composer, and I teach composing and arranging, and I tell students all the time, there's really nothing new under the sun. We borrow things. We don't steal ideas. We borrow ideas, from we study the music for that purpose. We study Mozart, we study Beethoven, we study Bach. So we learn all of these processes and kinds of things. And it just so happened that the three verses of Lift Every Voice fit so well with the three verses that were used of the Battle Hymn, The Republic, in the Wilhowski arrangement. Also, there was a very similar arrangement of Battle Hymn at the same time. The Roy Ringwald had an arrangement also of Battle Hymn. So it just seemed to have fit so well. And so I set out to set it. And I'll tell you just a few of the little things that happened. That the Wilhowski starts with Gloria, Gloria. The guys start in with the verse, mine eyes have seen the glory of the tenor basses, and the ladies have this sort of contrapuntal response, Gloria, Gloria, doing that. So I decided to let the guys start out with the melody, lift every voice and sing. And then I had the ladies come with a counter line of lift every voice and sing. You know, so very much in this way of that. I mean, I really borrowed everything that Will Husky had for this arrangement. And I got to the end of the first verse and then did oh wow, I can't even think of the word. A modulation, yeah, did a modulation to the second verse, and which was sort of in the Will Husky thing was it was a rather martial kind of thing with an ostinato bass, sing song, sing song. Well, the second verse of the lift every voice was what was the Stony the Road we trod. And so I said it in a kind of march military kind of way, and with an ostinato, sing, song, sing, song with the tenor basses against the ladies singing the melody.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
I think the Wilkowski is truth is marching.
yeah, right.
Marching. That one. And sing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. Through that whole verse. So
yeah.
the tenor bass would go, sing a song, lift it, Stony the Road we trod against that melody.
Yeah.
And then back to the chorus of the second verse, I had the instrument take the melody and the choir to do a complete accompaniment to the melody, contrapunted rhythmically against the melodic line. So the orchestra or the piano would play only the melody, and then in that, boy, I should have turned my keyboard on and I could have demonstrated some of that,
Yeah.
But, and so what happened in that, Stony the sing a song, sing a song. And so you can easily see the relationship there between that and the Wilhowski. And then the melody go, in the second chorus, the chorus sings, we have come, oh, we have come, oh, the way that we tease has been watered. That against the melody, in the piano. Then, but the joy of the third verse in the Wilhowski and the Ringwall, in the beauty of the lilies, the third verse goes into a kind of chorale thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and perhaps the most popular verse, meaningful verse of Lift Every Voice is the third verse. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way. A prayer, simply a prayer. And I mean, it was so fitting to do that as a chorale, as it worked out as the Ringwall and Wilhowski had done in that. And then to come, actually, and I finally really borrowed the Wilhowski thing, the line. That's my introduction also to the last chorus. So that's how it all came about. And it sat, as I said, I finally completed it in 70. It had I'm not sure when I did a premiere performance. Well, I know I did it for convocation, one of the spring convocations at the college where I was teaching at Hampton. And then I performed it with the Peninsula Symphony Orchestra on a Black History concert in the early 70s. And I think the big performance was the 1974 conference of the National Association of Negro Musicians in San Francisco. So that was where I had the pleasure, my dear friend Dunn White on organ and Betty Jackson King playing piano, talking about me about my accompaniment that was rather unusual, she thought, but that's how it all came about. Now, the goal, I must say, some 50 years later, as I wanted this song to be embraced I started using it as part of my work as a honors choir person. So I started using it with the mixed audiences and introducing it myself. Yeah. So I'm a choirs and all state choirs to do it also. So that, then of course, with what has happened in this past, the big performance that I think, which sort of brings reality to the goal, I guess, was the performance by the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. You know, my arrangement, there was a meeting, I think, with the presidency of the Mormon Church and the NAACP a couple of years ago. And so in honor, since it was the national hymn of the NAACP, the Tabernacle Choir decided they would do Lift Every Voice at the request of the executive committee. And that's what happened. And it added another breath, a new breath to the song. Now, historically, Black colleges had been singing it on their tours and concerts all over the country. So it had gotten fairly popular. So, and as a self-publisher, so I was pretty much aware of where it was being done because I get the orders and they would come in through me through major music stores and distributing houses. And it took off. So that's where it came from and that's where it is today, 50 years. And it's ironic that I got a call the other day before the start of the football season. The NFL had decided to do Lift Every Voice, and somebody said, of course they're going to do yours. I said, of course not. You know, mine, they would have to do, they can't do just one verse of mine. You got to do all three verses. So, you know, they can't do that. So, and I wasn't sure that I was in agreement with their doing that anyway. So, you know, people, it was rather symbolic, but if people didn't know the words or know the meaning of it, then it has no significance for me, unless they were going to put the words on the big screen, you know. And I don't know that they did that Wednesday night or Thursday night at the opening game anyway. But all is well. I hope I haven't talked too much to you about this.
Oh, this is wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. And we really appreciate you sharing your gifts. And I'm going to sign off here. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Peter.
Enjoy your day.
Appreciate
You bet.
it. Bye.
Bye-bye.